Demonic Hordes is probably the second funniest card in the entire game. Demonic Hordes is a 5/5 that costs 3 generic and 3 black mana to cast. And you can tap Demonic Hordes to destroy a land. Well, that's pretty spicy. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to pay 3 black mana or Demonic Hordes becomes tapped and you have to sacrifice a land that your opponent gets to choose. So that's pretty interesting, right? Well, yeah, but the card sucks. This is not a good card to play for a few reasons. And we'll go over these reasons in order of least funny to most funny. The least funny reason that this card isn't good is that its power is split across 2 incompatible fronts. This isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, as you could also just frame this as being versatile, but what I mean is that it's a 5/5, so you would think that you would want to, win the game with it, probably by swinging in and hitting them for 5 a turn. But if you swing with this, you can't tap it to destroy a land. Again, this is versatile, and it's not like you would want to be doing both of those things at the same time anyway, so there are situations where it's good that you can do either of those, but you are also paying a premium for 2 effects that you can't utilize efficiently. Again, this is not the worst thing in the world, but it's also not great. I think this would be a far more playable card if it was a 3 or 4 mana 1/1. Hell, it would be pretty great if it was a 2 mana 1/1 that still had the 3 mana upkeep requirement. I don't know that that would be a healthy game piece, and I also don't think that's the best thing to be doing in Alpha. It wouldn't be the strongest card by a long shot, but it would be more playable. Still, that's just a hypothetical. That's not the card that we have in front of us here. What we have is a 5/5 that taps to destroy a land. These are both positive traits, so it's hard to rag on this card too much. It's just that a 5/5 for 6 mana with a pretty steep upkeep cost is not great. We'll get to the upkeep cost in a bit, but on its face, as just a creature, it's not particularly impressive. Now, if this had trample or first strike or something, I think it would be pretty cool and even decent. Interestingly, if it had vigilance, this card would be way better, and also funny as hell, but c'est la vie. The funniest thing about this card that makes it absolutely horrible is Armageddon exists. Now, sure, you might be able to get around that if you have some Mox Jet hanging around, and maybe you get around it with a Dark Ritual, but in most situations, if you have this on a field and an Armageddon comes down, you're just super fucked. Probably the most fucked anyone has ever been. So, let's walk through this, shall we? So your opponent plays out their Armageddon, and all of your lands blow up, and all of their lands blow up. They probably play their land after that, and then they pass the turn, and you can't pay the 3 black mana, so your Demonic Hordes gets tapped. It's no big deal, right? It sucks, but you can't sacrifice a land you don't have. So you play out a swamp, cast the Will-O-Wisp, and pass the turn. Your opponent plays a land and passes. Now, you can't pay the 3 black mana, so your Demonic Horde gets tapped and you get a land sacrificed. So now you're spending the rest of the game with at best 1 land per turn, assuming you can play a land per turn, and it gets destroyed every upkeep, even if you have 1 to play out every turn. Now maybe you can hold this off with a Dark Ritual, and maybe if you have 3 lands and 2 Dark Rituals, you can even get over this and maybe come through, at least until the second Armageddon comes out. But you are pretty fucked in the funniest way. I don't know. This card is pretty bad, dudes, but it's so fucking funny. And I have a soft spot, personally, for black cards that do something really cool and interesting and somewhat powerful, but also that, if they backfire on you, you are, the most fucked ever. I think that's, one of the coolest expressions of color pie in Alpha. It's so fucking funny to me, right? Because, deal with the devil. It always comes with a downside that you're not equipped to pay for. That's kind of the whole point of that trope, right? I don't know. This card can be really good. Like, you can blow up their Library of Alexandria or hit them in the face for 5, and that's pretty fucking cool. Or you can get blown back to the fucking Stone Age and just be incapable of ever recovering from that. I don't know. I think that's really funny. I also have no idea if this was actually good in Magic during the old times, like when in 94, 93, when like people were actually running around with cards like this. It does look like a card that might have been brutal as hell, especially among groups of people that were like afraid to play Swords to Plowshare because they didn't want to give their opponent life, and they didn't want to play things like Armageddon because why on earth would you want your lands blown up, right? Like, people saw the game a little bit differently when it first came out, and this card was probably a lot better back then. But I have no idea if people thought this card was good, or if it played well just because of the meta of what people were actually playing at the time. So if you played back then, I would love to hear what you have to say on Demonic Hordes, because I'm really not sure what to make of this one, at least from a historical context. But I do think it is like the funniest fucking thing. It was printed up until revised, and has shown up on Magic Online and of course Magic 30, but this card hasn't seen too many printings. This is one of those cards that Magic stepped away from because of the Satanic Panic, right? So it hasn't had a chance to see the light of day since. But let's talk about the art, because I'm kind of dying to talk about the art. We only have the original art for this card, and it was illustrated by Jesper Mierfers. I think personally that it's a banger. Like, this is so fucking cool. The entire piece is just 3 colors of black, red, and white. It's mostly black, and the white is the least represented color, just enough to show off the razor-sharp teeth of these demons. It's a perfect juxtaposition to the shadowed beings to highlight how dangerous and fearsome these creatures are meant to be. The bright red of their eyes and the dull red of the backdrop just being enough to silhouette these creatures is just so fucking cool. Like, this art is awesome. I think it's great. But, I don't know, dudes. I think that's all I can really say about Demonic Hordes. I do really like this card. I think it's hilarious. I think the art is fantastic. And I do love anything that says destroy target land. It's such a spicy mixture, I just can't help but be intrigued. So, hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow when we talk about a red card of some kind. Thank you for watching. You can like the video if you liked it. You can subscribe if you give a shit. But either way, I hope you have a magical day.